We're on the bed Amud Bed, in the English 2b3, Masechet Shabbat. Okay, so last time we were learning, and if you go back into the art scroll and you want to see these, we had 8 cases in the Mishnah. So on the art scroll Gemara, you can see the list of 8 cases on page 282. So we had the 4 cases of the Oraita, where either the Ani did the taking in or taking out, and he did the whole thing, the Akira and the Hanacha, the lifting and the placing, or you had the Balabayit who did the whole thing, the lifting and the placing, either from inside the house to outside or from outside to inside. Those were the 4 Doraita cases. And then you had all those cases where they were done in half by the poor man, half by the Balabayit. It's either going in or going out, and either he's picking up and he's putting down. So you have 2 variables in each. So you have another 4 cases. So that way you ended up with 8 cases. And that's what the Mishnah said. You have Shtaim Shen Abba B'chutz and Shtaim Shen Abba Bifnim. Okay? So our Gemara picks up over here. And our Gemara says, Omer Le Rav Matna Abaya. Who said that there's only 8? There is really 12 cases, because if you take a look back again on 282, in cases 5 to 8, there's a A and there's a B. There's a poor man, and then there's the Balabayit. There's the Balabayit, and the poor man is the Balabayit, and the poor man, and the Balabayit. So each case is actually split into 2, and there's a different din for each one, right? I mean, there is a din for each one. There is a halacha for each of the participants, right? They're both pater of alasr, right? So there should be 12 cases listed, and not 8. So the Gemara says, and according to your reasoning, Shetzere Havion, there should be 16 cases. Why? Because even the original 4 cases that are Doraita, where the Ani of the Balabai did the whole thing, either taking in or taking out, right? In those original 4 cases, the other guy who was passive is Potter. So if you're counting all the result cases, you really have 16. That you're saying, the ones that are Potter and Mutter, meaning that they were just passive, we're not counting. Bishlama, it's understandable. Bava deresha. Potter or mutar lo katani, when it's potter or mutar, meaning the guy who's standing there passively and they're taking it in and out of his hand, right? He didn't do anything at all. He's just standing there. He's an innocent bystander. That's potter or mutar for Hilchot Shabbat. We already saw in the Rishonim, Rashi, Rambam, others who say that he shouldn't be doing that even passively, because Lamaisa, he's lifnei iver lo titein michshol. You don't want to put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, so you don't want to be any part of it, even passively. But in the Hilchot Shabbat standpoint, it is pater or mutar, and therefore it won't be counted in the count of the Mishnah. No one's going to even think about counting that. Avababa de seifa. But according to the last cases, the last 4 or 8 cases, if you look at them as each part half, the pater aval author kasha. Why didn't we count them separately? Each one, the ani and the balabai, in each case separately, and this way get a count of 12. 16, I understand. The other 4 that are pater legamre, they're pater or mutter, so they're not going to be counted. The ones that are pater aval author, so you have more. You have 8 cases that are pater aval author. Now, before we move on, the Mishnah only said potter. It didn't say potter or mutter. Potter means exempt. Exempt from what? We usually mean, what it means in Hilchot Shabbat, potter from bringing a carbon, which does not mean that it's permissible to do. Potter usually means potter aval asur, which means it is asur derabanan. And therefore, even if you did it, there is no chayav chatat. You don't have to bring a carbon, but it's asur to do. So we're going to see that usually whenever it says potter, it means potter, you're exempt from a carbon, but aval asur, but it's still asur to do. And this is the Gemara's question. Mi ika bekule Shabbat potter umuter. You never find that when it says potter, it means potter and muter. You're allowed to do that. V'amar Shmuel, kol puturei de Shabbat potter aval asur. Anytime it says in Hilchot Shabbat, you're going to be learning Hilchot Shabbat, you learn Pesach Shabbos B'ezrat Hashem, and it's going to be saying potter in certain cases. You should know it means potter of asur, but you're not allowed to do it. It's exempt from a carbon as it's not a deoraita. Call Piturei the Shabbat potter of asur. Bar Mahani Tilat the potter umutar. But that's a Shmuel. Amar Shmuel call Piturei the Shabbat potter of asur. Bar Mahani Tilat the potter umutar. Except for these three cases that are potter and mutar, meaning that even rabbinically it is permitted. What are the three cases? So we're going to just learn them very briefly, just for our understanding today. Tzidat Tzivi, the trapping of a deer. So the case is someone already trapped the deer, and the deer is inside the enclosure, and the person is sitting at the entrance blocking the deer from coming out. Now a second person comes and sits down next to the first person. And even if the first person gets up, the second person remains sitting there. That is patur umutar. He never did the tzeidah. He didn't do the trapping. He's just continuing the watching, and he's not doing the trapping, and therefore it is patur umutar. The next case was vitzidat nahash, which was trapping of a snake. Now, if the snake is poisonous and dangerous, then it is pekuach nefesh, and that's not a case that we're talking about. What we're talking about is where the snake is not, life-threatening, but it is painful, and b'makom tsar, and there's going to be pain if he bites. So, if the person does malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, he's not doing malacha for its purpose, whatever that means. We'll have to get into that at a separate time. But he's not doing the malacha to capture the snake and use its venom or skin or hide for medicinal purposes or other things, or rather, he's trapping it in order to not let that snake bite them or him or their family, right? So that is doing malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. It's not for its intent purpose, right? Usually you trap in order to use the snake for his properties, his qualities, his whatever it is. And here you're doing it because of tsar, and there's going to be pater or mutar. And another similar case, umefis morsa, and lancing a boil, which means a person has a boil, and usually in order to heal it, you have to make a permanent hole. Okay, and this way it will get healed. But here, the person's intent is only for immediate removal of the pus trapped inside the boil, and does not mind if the opening closes up immediately after the pus drains. He's exempt. Why? Because again, it's malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, and it's b'makom tsar, so it's going to be pater u mutar. Okay, so you can drain the pus. So what do you see? You have only three cases. Our Mishnah is not one of those cases that it's pater or mutar. It's only tzidat tzvi, tzidat nahash, and mefis morsa. Mar says, no, there is more cases of pater or mutar. Ki itzrach le'shmuel. Piturei de ka'avin ma'aseh. Piturei de lo ka'avin ma'aseh. Ikatuva. So says the Gemara, the only time I need you to tell me that pater and pater means pater and mutar, and these are the three special cases. These are the cases that an maisa, an action, a positive action is being done, and still we're saying it's mutar, it's patur or mutar. But in cases where the person didn't do anything, right, he's no maisa, there's no action on that person, he's just standing there, right? That's definitely going to be patur or mutar for Hilchot Shabbat. So there, I don't need Shmuel statement. So there is more. When you're totally passive, there is more patur or mutars, because you're not doing anything, you can't be chayiv anything. You call makar. Okay, so here you have it's only to call makom tarte sirei havyan. There is 12 cases, right? There are 4 original cases, the chayiv deoraita, achatat, and then the 4 second set of cases, which are really 8. It was really a total of 8, because if you look at the Adam Balabait separately, each one is a different case. Each one is pater abul aser, so it should be 12 total. So why don't we say 12 total? That's the Gemara. Teture de ate behuli de chiyuv chatat kachoshin. De lo ate behuli de chiyuv chatat lo kachoshin. So this is the Gemara. The Gemara says the only ones that we're going to count is the ones that can end up, even though it's a derabanan, could end up being a deoraita and being chayav a chatat. So which ones are that? So it is the ones that started the akira. Remember, there's two parts here: the akira and the hanacha, the lifting and the placing. If you're just doing the placing, there's no way you could ever become chayiv chatat because there's no you have no akira. But if you did the akira, there is a chance you may do the hanacha. So those are the cases the Mishnah counts. The ones that you're pater of al asr, but it's pater and there's never even a chance of a doraita, the Mishnah is not counting. But the ones who did the akira, those cases, so there's four. 4 and 4 is a total of 8. Let's take a look inside. The law it's not going to be counted. Okay? So that's why there's only 8 cases. The 8 for the 4 original cases, the 4 Doraita cases where the guy does the whole thing. All right? We don't care about the guy being potter because it's potter and mutter. It's not our problem. Right? Still, he shouldn't do it because it's not evil. He's saying all right, so that's the 4 original cases. 4 Doraita cases. Then you have the 4 Durabanan cases. But really, the 4 Durabanan cases should be split into 8 because there's an onion and a balabait in each case, and both of them are potter of a Mari says, no, we're not counting the one who's doing the hanocha, the placing, because you can never be chayiv a Doraita on that. So therefore, the only one we're counting is the one who's the chance of being chayiv chatat is the one who does the akira, and that's your 8. Okay, now the Gemara's question. Nehen piturin. You told me that they both did it, right? You have the onion and the balabait, and they're both doing it. Pater of a lasser. But why? Vaha it abida malacha mibanayu. In the end of the day, they are both doing a halacha, a malacha. A malacha is happening. A malacha is happening between them. So why are we letting them get away with it? Okay. So Tanya was talking about Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says there is a pasuk Vayikra Dalet Chav Zayin. That middle of the pasuk says and talks about a person doing an aveir and he has to bring a carbon. Ma'am ha'aretz ba'asota. When he does them, he does it. Ma'am ha'aretz ba'asota, by committing it. Okay. Ba'asota ahat mimitzvot Hashem asher lo ta'asena. Right? That's what the pasuk says. So instead of Yudanasi ha'oseh et kula, it means that the person who does aver does the whole aver. Below aseh miksasa, he doesn't do part of it. Yachid ba'osot chayav. He does it himself. He's chayav. Shenayim ba'asu ota pitunim. But if 2 of them do the act, they are patur. Itmar nami. It was also stated. Amar Chia bar Gamda. There was a group of students that were learning, they were all learning separately, and they all came to the same conclusion, who said, Ba'asota, Yachid Sha'asa'a Hayab, Shanayim Sha'asu'aha Peturin. But if 2 of them do it, right, each one does a part of the malacha, so then they're going to be potter. Okay, just to review a few halachot that comes out of this sugya. So if there's a malacha like hotza'ah where you have to do 2 actions, akira and the hanacha, and one person does one, Reuben does the akira and Shimon does the hanacha, both of them are pater of a lasser, right? Means you did not do a deoraita, you did a derabanan, and therefore it's pater of al asur. Okay, now what about this case? The case that both of them are picking it up and putting it down at the same time. Meaning they're holding it together, picking it up and putting it down at the same time. So the halacha here is it depends on the case. Meaning if it's an item that only one person is needed to pick up and 2 of them pick it up, so then it will be pater of asur. It's a derabanan because they only really need one and they did it with 2. So it's pater of asur. But if it is an item, if it's an item that needs 2 people to do it, meaning it's so heavy, they need 2 people to move it, and 2 people moved it, so now they're both going to be hayav and hatat, because both of them are instrumental for making it happen. There was one other case that we saw on Shabbat. The Gemara in the back of the Gemara Mesivta brings this case. What happens if a guy takes it out? He takes out an item that could be carried by one person, but he carries it with 2 people, so him and another person, but that other person is a cotton. Okay, someone who's, let's say, 6 years old, 7 years old, it's katan. All right, it's not permitted yet, and he carries it out with him. Is it considered two people, and he's not high of a hatat, or what's the case over here? So there's a sefer of the Melech, and he says, you know, what's going to be the gadol is going to be hayav a hatat. How does it work? He says, really, they did a malacha. So why, when there's two people doing malacha, they're potters? Is because the ma'aseh, you both did one malacha. You should bring one hatat for the malacha. But two people cannot bring one hatat. It's not possible. Everyone has to bring their own hatat. And here, only one hatat is needed. And you can't bring it by two people. But when there is a katan, the katan has no chiyuv hatat. So even though it's two people, there's really, the action was done, the malacha was done. So really, there is a chayav chatat. Now the katan can't bring it. Who's the only one who could bring it? It's only one person that needed to bring it. And it's going to be the gadol. It's a very interesting case of a katan and a gadol where they carry it out together. And even though it's shneihem, and usually we say shneim peturin, here we would say no. It's the gadol would be chayav because the katan is not counted to bring a chatat, and therefore the gadol will still be chayav the chatat. Okay, let us continue the Gemara. Voy Rav mirabi. Rav asked the question of Rebbe. He said as follows: if one's fellow loaded upon him food and drink in the reshut hayahid, so not on his hand necessarily, but they put sacks of food on his back, on his shoulder, whatever it was. So he's not holding it in his hand. And now he walks outside. He goes to the Reshut Rabim. He's leaving the Reshut Yachid and going to the Rabim. Mahu, what is the law? He's not carrying it. He's not lifting it with his hands and taking it out. But is it akirat gufo ka akirat hefetz imkomodami? Is uprooting his body, meaning starting to move and leave the place, is that considered also moving the objects that are on him? Or maybe no. So again, mahu akira gufo mekira hefetz imkomodami umihayav. Or maybe not. Maybe he's not actually lifting it up. He's just moving his body and nothing to do with the item. So Rebbe said to Rab, Hayab, he's liable. He is liable. So when he's moving, it's as if he's picking it up and moving the item. And it's not comparable to the hand. Okay, what does this mean? The hand, we had a case that if the ani is in the Reshut Rabim and he puts his hand into the Reshut Yachid and someone places an object into his hand, right? So who did the akira? Again, the ani is standing outside. He puts his hand inside, and the balabai goes ahead and puts it in his hand. Our case in the Mishnah said the akira was done by the balabait. He picked it up and put it in his hand. But 1 second, why? Why? If he's moving his hand, then he's the one doing the akira. Here, the guy's moving his body, and he's doing the akira on the object. So Rebbe says, don't compare it to the hand. Don't compare it to the hand. Why not? So what is the status of the hand? Lama said, the hand is not at rest when it's stretched out. The body is in the Reshut. The hand is in the Reshut Yachid. So what's the status of the hand? Is it Reshut Yachid? No, it can't be because the body is in the Reshut. Is it Reshut Rabim? No, because his hand is in the Reshut Yachid. What is the status? So therefore, it's not the same thing. His hand is not at rest when it's stretched out into a different domain. Ma ta'ama, this is what Rabbi says. Gufo nayech. The guf is at rest where it is, right? And wherever it is. Yado lo nayech. But the hand is not at rest. It's stretched out. It's not a rest. Even though the hand is moving from the Reshut Yachid to Reshut Rabim, and the Balabai put it into his hand, you cannot say, oh, I'm loading him up with stuff, so it's he's moving it now. No, it's not, because his hand was never at rest while it was stretched out. Okay, so Alma now just a little musar. I'm gonna Rav. He asked it to Rav, what are you doing? Bar Pachte, son of nobles. Lo amin elach, did I not already tell you? Ki ka'e Rabbi. Bahamasechta lo tishayaleb masechta hariti. When Rebbe is involved in one mesechet, don't ask him another question from a different mesechta. Dilma lamadate. Maybe his mind's not going to be on it. Dilav that Rabbi Gavra Rabahu. If we're not from the fact that Rabbi was a great man, kasafte, you would have embarrassed him. The mishane lach shinuya, dilav shinuyahu. He would give you an answer that was not proper answer. So right away, the Mefarshim, like, what does this mean? There are cases that say that a real Gaon is somebody who can answer a question from any topic. So perhaps there's different understandings over here. Number one, when are you asking it? When the person is in the middle of teaching, right? His mind is totally set at what he's teaching. And a real Gaon is able to completely dedicate all his faculties to the topic at hand. So therefore, asking the question while he's teaching could be problematic. You can end up embarrassing him, and you can end up embarrassing him. And but if you're asking him at a time, if he's taking questions, that's okay. That's the time he's supposed to take questions. Right, and it is a big thing for a person to be able to put all his mind into one topic. So that is a great thing, indeed. And it's also how you have respect. How do you do it? How do you ask? And stuff like that. We saw in the halacha, it's brought down that you have to ask a question mamish on the topic that's being taught. You cannot ask a question that's somewhat related. It has to be on the topic itself. And if you know the rabbi doesn't know the answer, right? You went to find questions specifically, you know he doesn't have the answer. You should not be asking it. You should not be embarrassing another individual, especially the rabbi who's taking that. If you have a legit question, you have a legit question. And I always mention, Moshe Meir Weiss would say that it's normal and expected that a rabbi should say, I got to get back to you. I have to look at it. Something that's not pertinent to the moment, right? You can take a look and say, I got to get back. I have to check it up. I have to look. It's not something that I know by heart. It's not something that I've been, 20 years, no one asked me this question. So I got to go back and check. Now, someone who knows it, great. If he knows, he should answer. But someone who says, listen, I need some time, that is perfectly normal as well. Others want to say that a Gaon and a great rabbi like Yehuda Nasi would never make a mistake. Hashem wouldn't let him make a mistake when he gives an answer. But perhaps the reasoning behind the answer, that when he asks for a reason, he'll give the wrong reason. The answer will be right. Right? Mutar, Asur, whatever it is. But the reasoning might be wrong because his mind is busy somewhere else. So that's probably what Rabbi Chia was worried about, according to other question. So now it says Rabbi Chia, Hashta mihat shaper mishani lach. But he did teach you right. He did say it right. The Tanya. If someone goes and they put on this guy, on his body, they put him, food and drink, and he goes outside once it already became Shabbat. He's hayav at that. He left the Rishti Yachid. He went to Rishut Rabim. He went from Rishut to Rishut on Shabbat. So he did that kira, and then he went and he stopped over there. He did a hanacha. Because it's not comparable to the hand. The body is at rest, the hand is not at rest, and that is the law. Now, interesting. The Gemara said from nightfall. Why? Because if he left during the day while it was Friday, so the akira was on Friday. He cannot be chayav chatat if the akira was done on Friday. But if he left the house and then he stopped in the Rishut Rabim, and then he walked again in Rishut Rabim, then he did it. Right? Because in Rishut Rabim, you also can't carry. So if you did that Akira of Hanacha in the Rishut Rabim, that would also be a problem, even if he left on Friday from the Rishut Yachid, as long as he stopped before him. And here we talk about he didn't stop, and then there's only Hanacha after when he finally stops, and not an Akira and the Hanacha, if it started on Friday. Okay. So, the status of the hand. The status of the hand. What is it? Amar Abai, Shitali. Yadoy Shel Adam, Eino La B'Rishut Rabim, ולא כשל יחיד, תנא של רבים, תנא של יחיד. כשל רבים לא דמיה, מיד לא דעני. It's not the Rishut Rabim because from the hand of the Ani. When he's in the Rishut Rabim, his hand is out, and if he takes it from inside, it becomes a Rabim. So his hand is not Rishut Rabim. Right? כשל יחיד לא דמיה, and it's not regarding a private domain, מיידו דבעל הבית. So the hand is not Yachid, it's not Rabim. It's not either or. So which one is it? Right. So which one is it? says, Boy Abai. Abai asked the question. Yadosh Adam, did the Chachamim make the hand of a person when it's stuck out into another domain with something inside of it? Did they make it a karmalit? Remember, a karmalit was a reshut rabim of a derabanan. Okay, so here you're telling me it's not a reshut rabim, right? The hand such as not a reshut rabim, right? I'm saying reshut rabim. My hand is inside. It's not a reshut rabim. His hand is he's inside. His hand is outside. It's not reshut yachid. So it's not reshut rabim. It's not reshut yachid. Where is his hand? What's inside his hand? Maybe the chama made it a reshut rabim derabanan, a karmalit. And mi kansua rabbanan lahadure ligabe Allah. So now, maybe the rabbis made a knas, made a penalty, that if a person sticks out his hand to the Shut Rabim, his hand is as if it's in the Carmelite. And if it's in the Carmelite, then Shut Rabim Rabbanan, he's not allowed to bring his hand back in. So, was this a knas that was made? Toshma. There was a case where a person filled his hands with fruit and he stuck it out to the Shut Rabim. Asur lahachzira. You're not allowed to bring it back inside. One right that says you're not allowed to bring it back. Another right that says you're allowed to bring it back. Is this not what they're arguing with? The Marsava Karmel is dumb. One says his hand is like a Karmel, should have been to the banana, and therefore you cannot bring it back. And it's a knas on it. The Marsava allowed Karmel is dumb. And one says no, it's not like a Karmel, and therefore you're allowed to bring your hand back. The Mar says lie. Why are you saying this way? The Kuli Amal Karmel is dumb. Everyone holds it's a Karmel. So like Kasha. It depends. Where is it? Remember, the Reshut Rabim is only 10 tfachim high. Above 10 tfachim is called a makom petur. So if he stretches his hand out and it's within 10 tfachim of the ground, okay, that's where they said don't bring it back. Well, if you stretch your hand out above 10 tfachim, you're in the makom petur, so you can bring your hand back in. Levi is saying, if you want to answer even better, really, both cases where he stuck his hand under the 10 tfachim, right? The lavke karmelis damio, and it's not a karmelis, and both agree it's not a karmelis. So like kasha, and still not a kasha. Why is one yes and one no? Kan miboid kan mishachashecha, miboid yoim lo kansur rabbanon, mishachashecha kansur rabbanon. It has nothing to do with the karmelis now. The Gemara wants to say it has to do with the knas, just the penalty. That perhaps the Chum said if you stuck your hand out on Friday and now it became Shabbat, you can bring your hand back in. Why? Because you didn't do any Asur. You took it out on Friday to bring it back in. But if you took it out on Shabbat, you did something Asur. So therefore, keep your hand out. And it's a knas and nothing to do with Carmelit. The Gemara says, why are you saying it this way? Adrabah, you should say it the other way. Ipcha mistabra. If you take it out on Friday, you knas him and make him keep it there. For if he were to throw it down, he would not come to incur the liability of a chatat. Remember, if he throws it down, then he does the anocha. So the guy has it in his hand, and it's going to get heavy in him, and he's going to want to throw it out. Then he's going to be putting it down, that means, and he's going to be chayav a chatat. So why would you put Linkansur Rabbanon? Why would you want to make him, that's where you can make him, okay, so let's just read the whole line, and then I'll explain it. Okay. The Gemara says that the opposite logic is better. Why? If he stuck it out on Shabbat, you should let him bring it back in. Why? Because if you don't let him bring it back in, it's going to get heavy. He's going to throw it from his hand. He's going to do the hanocha. And then he's going to be chayav a chatat. He did a doraita. He took it out on Shabbat, and he placed it down on Shabbat, right? So he's going to be chayav. A chatat is going to be a doraita. But if you took it out on Friday, therefore don't make the knas there. But if you took it out on Friday and he stuck his hand out and then it became Shabbat, yeah, keep your hand out there. That's your knas. Why? Because even if he throws it down, it'll only be a hanocha on Shabbos and not in akira. So that would be better, but that's not what the Chachamim said. And since we did not learn it this way, but rather the Chachamim said it the opposite way, that, he didn't do any Isser on Friday, therefore let him bring it back even though it's Shabbos. Now, if he did an Isser on Shabbos, let him stay there. Now, maybe we can answer another question. Tifshoy de Rabbivi bar Abaya. This question will be dealt with more next week. But for now, simply, there was a question of Rabbivi bar Abaya. The voy Rabbivi bar Abaya. His big pot b'tanur. Person put bread onto the side of the tanur, the side of the oven, like we make with the pyoshkas. We throw them into the side of the oven. So same way, that's the way they used to do it in the Talmud also. So now the Chachamim said you're not allowed to take off the bread from the side wall of the tanur because it's a ubdedachol, it's a work of the weekday, a special skill that we don't want you doing on Shabbat. It's the Rabbanan. So now, what happens? The guy did it on Shabbat. He put the bread on the thing. Now, what's going to happen? He places the dough on an oven. Well, if it bakes, he went and he put it inside. Whatever. He forgot. He didn't know. Whatever it was. He put it in. Now he remembers the Shabbat. Now, if he keeps it there, it's going to become baked, and he's going to be chayav the hatat for baking it. It's doraita, right? Or do we say, take it off, and don't worry about the rabbanan that said you're not allowed to take off bread, right? Because if you leave it there, you're going to be chayav chatan then. Or lo hitiru tifshot the lo hitiru. Based on what you told me, you would say that you're not allowed to take it off. Why? Because we said in the case, if he did it on Shabbat, he stuck his hand out. That's the case where you knas him and make it keep his hand out, even if it might fall. He might drop it and do the hanacha. Even so, that's the knas. So if that's the knas, so here too. Yes, you put it on Shabbat, it has to stay there. And the goes to halakasha, and yet you should explain it that way. Everybody say no. Don't answer the question for there. It's not comparable. There's differences in the case. There's that maybe this is not the right way to learn it. Regardless, don't clarify it from there. And yet there's still no difficulty. What's our case? Our case is kan b'shoigeg, kan b'mezid. B'shoigeg like knus rabbanon. Mezid knus rabbanon. All has to do with shoigeg or mezid. The guy who accidentally stuck his hand out to the rabbin with something inside of it. Shoigeg, you can bring it back in. You did it amazing, you did it on purpose, then you have to get knas and stay out there. Everybody say, no, really, both of them are dealing with shoigeg against a machlokes. They're arguing if we are going to penalize the accident based on the one who's doing it deliberately. Why? The guy sticks out his hand and says, it was an accident. Okay, bring it back in. The other guy does it on purpose. And then he's going to say, it was an accident. He's going to bring it back in also because he has that. So maybe that's why we don't let. Mar Savar comes to showing out to Mazid. Mar Savar like come to showing out to Mazid. And the Sema, if you want to say even better, loy come to. Really, there is no knas of shagagot to Mazid. V'loy kashi, there's no difficulty. Kan lo oto hater, kan lehater acheret. It all depends where you're bringing it back to. Usually, bring it back means the same place, but maybe I want to bring it back to another Shut Yachid. That's when I'm not allowed to do it. Kedava minei Ravam Rav Nachman. Hayta yadom alei perot v'otzia lachutz. His hands were full of fruits and he took it outside. Lehachzira lo oto hatzer. You're allowed to. Ma'u lachzira lo oto hatzer. Amalei Rav Nachman said to Rava mutar. Rava asked him the chatzer acheret ma'u. What about another chatzer? Amalei asur u'mayishna. What's the difference? His or to a different yard. So Rav Nachman said, go and eat a measure of salt and you'll figure it out. Or go and pay me a measure of salt and I'll tell you. He's using this type of lighthearted expression. And what's the difference? Hatam lo itavida machshavto, hacha itavida machshavto. Because one of the whole reason he's sticking it out is because he wants to take it out of his field. So if he brings it back to his field, he didn't do what he wanted to do. Therefore, he's allowed to bring it back. But if he wants it out of his field and you let him put it in another field, then what? He is getting what he wants. It's out of his field. Okay, so let's just review the halakha that comes out of this sugya. So, give me 1 second as I pull out the aliba of the Hilchasa and the Mitzvah Gemara, and he writes as follows. Haya omed b'reshut yachid. The guy is standing Reshut Yachid, v'hotzi yado mal'eh peot Reshut Rabim. B'toch 10 tfachim, within 10 tfachim of the ground. So b'shogeg, if you did it by accident, mutar la'aseh l'oto hatzer. You're allowed to bring it back to that chatzer. V'asur l'hoshit o l'zruka l'chatzer acher. He's not allowed to throw it or place it in another chatzer. V'afilu ima chatzer shelo, even if it is his own field. O shel acherim ve'erevu yachad, or it was from others and he made an error with them. You're not allowed to do that. B'mezid, if you did it on purpose, kansu chazal, sheloi lahachziro, afilu oto chater. You're not allowed to bring it back if you did it on purpose. El yachzam biyado ad shecha. And he should leave it there until nightfall. And that is the psak of the Rambam and the Rashi. And the Talmud Knas he took it out b'isur. Okay, and there's even a Rashba and a Ran that says if you took it out on purpose, Erev Shabbat, we also Knas him, he has to leave it out there. And the Meiri argues and says if you took it out on Erev Shabbat, even on purpose, still you're allowed to bring him back. He didn't do any Isser when he took it out. However, there is other opinions. V'yesh omrim, this is Mishnah Berurah, shekna zeh hu rak kshotzim ebod yom Erev Shabbat, ki be'ofen zeh ap mishchach v'yishlechu miyadoi, v'yishlechu miyadoi, lo ya'avor el isur ba'alma. אבל מוציע משחשיך, התירו לו להחזירה לאותו חצר. כי אנחנו חוששים שמא ישליכם מידו ויבוא לידי איסור שיש בו חיוב חטאת, כי עושה אותה בשוגג. So the Mishnah Berurah, we're worried that if we're going to knas him, he's going to keep it out. This is B'Shem Rashba V'Ran. The Mishnah Berurah, the Maggid Mishnah, B'Shem Rambam the Rashba. Okay, so we have different opinions over here. The guy who did it on purpose, he did it. Did we make sure he stays it out, or do we let him bring it back in? But if we took it from 10 up, 10 tvachim higher, which is the makom patur, mutar le'achzir l'to chatzer. Afilu motzia b'mezid ki reshut rabim eno tofeset ela ad asara. Aval mal masara havei makom patur, and therefore you're allowed to bring it back. Okay, fine. Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam. If you took it out to a Carmelit, not Reshut Rabim derabanan, not Reshut Rabim deraita, Reshut Rabim derabanan, right? Mutar lachzir l'oto chatzer. He's allowed to bring it back. Maybe Reshut Rabim, but he's not allowed to take it to a Reshut Harabim. Okay, so Shulchan Aruch. So here we go back to the psak that we learned in Hilchot Shabbat that most poskim say that everywhere in the world today there is no legit Reshut Rabim D'Oraita anymore. Everything is a Carmelit. So, l'halach l'maaseh, person stuck out his hand with something into the Reshut Rabim, or what we would consider a Carmelit. He's allowed to bring it back because there's no Reshut Rabim D'Oraita. It's Reshut Rabim D'Rabanan. For a Carmelit, you're allowed to bring it back. Right, and the Shulchan Aruch explains, yeah, okay, fine. So this is the halachot based on the sugya that we just learned.